All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this weekly forecast for the upcoming week, um, which is going to start tomorrow. So, Monday, June 22nd through Friday, June 26th, 2026, obviously. So, overall, this week, if we look at the economic calendar, it's a pretty good week. We do have some red folders, but I find that there's a lack of US dollar news this week. So let's take a look at everything. So on Monday, we have Canadian dollar CPI, which is going to increase quite drastically on a month-to-month basis. So let's keep an eye on that. But on a yearly basis, should stay pretty much the same. Then after that, on Tuesday, we have a bunch of orange folder news, including PMI for the US dollar, but nothing crazy here. And then we finally have the Australian dollar CPI. After that, on Wednesday, we have some Australian dollar news again. And Thursday, we have PCE for the US dollar. That's pretty much it. And then on Friday, we don't really have anything. So overall, it's average, I would say. It's not the greatest economic calendar, especially for the US dollar. But for the other currencies, we do have, you know, some decent we do have some decent news when it comes to like Euro, GBP, Canadian, Australian dollar. So that could be interesting. Let's take a look at the charts, see what we have. So on the dollar, we delivered higher. We reached this high. So now this high turns into a fair value area right here. And we pushed higher from that weekly fair value gap. Now, the next target is really far. It's this rejection high all the way up here, which is a monthly rejection high, I believe. No, no, actually, it's not. Sorry, it's a monthly fair value gap. So I think that's the next target for sure. And I think that from there, once we reach this monthly fair value gap here, then the dollar is heading lower. Okay, I don't think the dollar is going to continue higher for the remainder of the year. Okay, that's really important right here. So yeah, overall, the dollar looks good to continue higher until we reach this high. Now, on the weekly, we have the opportunity to create a weekly fair value gap. Um, so we could have a consolidation week. We'll have to see what happens. But there's two scenarios here. Either we consolidate throughout the entire week to create that weekly fair value gap, or if we look on the daily time frame here, we created this beautiful, beautiful daily fair value gap that's overlapping with the fair value area, which we can start going higher from. Okay. So there's two scenarios. Either we consolidate around this area right here to create a weekly fair value gap, or we start moving higher already. Now, on the daily, we also have a closer target that's right here. So I think that for the beginning of the week, I think that we can definitely continue higher, at least until we reach that high. And once we reach this first high, then I see a consolidation happening for the remainder of the week. Okay? So yeah, that could dollar could be interesting to be honest, to start the week. So let's take a look at all the majors, see which one would be most interesting. So AU delivering beautifully here. We still haven't reached the target. Friday was a consolidation. Yeah, this is not great. This is not great. I don't really like AU now. Just because we've been consolidating so much in the past 2 days, and we're also pretty close to this target. So that's not interesting to me. GU hasn't reached the target yet. Okay. And then on the daily, we have that daily fair value gap. So that looks a lot like the dollar here. So yes, I think GU could be interesting. Let's put an alert on that daily fair value gap if we can retrace back into it. And then we could have a short-term opportunity, bearish, like this. But again, I don't know if the RR is worth it here. That's you have to take that into account. But yeah, I think overall, once we get the retracement inside the daily fair value gap, this could be really interesting. Okay, now moving on to EU. EU is heading for what is this here? Okay, so that's a quarterly fair value gap here on EU. That's definitely the next target. Well, we could say that the next target is also this swing low right here. This one has been reached. So on the daily time frame, it's not as great as GU. I'm not gonna lie. GU has that daily fair value gap here. EU doesn't. Yes, we have this fair value gap, but that's quite high. Like I don't see price retracing all the way up here to then move lower. But I'll put it on the interest list. It's still better than AU in my opinion. New Zealand dollar, US dollar. Moving lower, we still have this target to reach. Um, but we don't have a daily fair value gap here. That's the problem. We don't have a 4 hour either, so that's just not interesting for now. Maybe that could change throughout the week, but for now, I just don't see any context anywhere. USD Canadian. So USD Canadian has been delivering higher a lot, and we have a lot of Canadian dollar news this week, so could be interesting. Um, but right now we've reached a major high, and so honestly, I'm expecting consolidation here this week. Like I wouldn't trade USD Canadian because we reached that high, we closed a little bit above it, and now we just I mean, the most likely thing for price to do is to create that weekly fair value gap. That's for sure. So honestly, USD Canadian, I would take a step back. But I don't know, it's hard to tell because we could also have a retracement back inside this fair value gap to continue higher. But what's the next target? Because we reached that target, so now the next target would be this one right here, and that's really far. Like it's gonna take a few weeks before we reach that target. So yeah, honestly, I'll put it on the interest list, but it's not my best pick. So far, my best pick would be GU. Okay. USD CHF to continue higher. Yeah, that could be interesting because we have a bunch of targets. We have this one, we have this one right here, which I think we can definitely reach if the dollar wants to move higher, of course, and doesn't consolidate. We these two have been reached. Now, again, what I see here on USD CHF is a retracement back inside this daily fair value gap to continue higher. Yeah, that could be interesting because we haven't reached, we still have, this target to reach. So USD CHF definitely interesting, just like GU. And finally, USD JPY. We haven't reached the target yet. Oh my God, okay. Uh, the targets are so far to the left. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where price wants to head next, but let's focus on this one here. This is the next target, okay? So, is there a way that we can reach this target? Well, yeah, actually, yeah. From, again, this daily fair value gap, I can see a short-term opportunity here where we retrace back inside that daily fair value gap to then continue higher. So, yeah, overall, this is interesting here. USD JPY, but only for short term. Once we reach this high, then take a step back for sure. All right, now moving on to the metals. Let me remove some stuff here. Um, okay. So yeah, the on gold, for example, we can see that the last. Okay, I'm gonna remove all these positions here. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you guys. I took this trade on I think that was what, yeah, Friday. So unfortunate. Like I was so pissed at this trade. I entered. Well, we're gonna see it clear better from like the 5 minute. I entered here on this candle after rejecting from this 5 minute fair value gap. The two candle rejection was good, and then I got taken out by like 2 pips, and then price just like exploded to take profit. So yeah, I took a loss on this one. I was really pissed. Um, but again, you can just learn from trades like that. All right, so right now gold is moving lower. Okay, we can see from the weekly candle here. This is a very strong weekly, um, well, bearish weekly candle. Okay, so now the next target is this low, previous week's low. This is not relevant anymore, and we can just keep heading lower. The problem is we don't have context right now. Like we don't have that daily fair value gap. And by the way, silver has it. Okay, we'll see it after. But silver has a daily fair value gap. Gold doesn't. So gold to me is not that interesting right now. But if we take the Fibonacci here, it wouldn't be too crazy to see a retracement all the way back here to then move lower. Okay, but right now, gold is just not that clear to me. But overall, yes, my bias is bearish here on gold for the week, at least until we reach this low. So now let's look at silver. Uh, like I was saying, silver has that daily bearish fair value. So I definitely prefer silver here. If I was going to trade a metal tomorrow, it would be silver. So if you look at the weekly, again, strong bearish candle. We just had a sting inside this weekly fair value gap, this fair value area, and we completely pushed lower. We still have this low to reach that we've never reached. We did reach that low on gold last week, remember, right here, but we didn't on silver. And so now silver can deliver there. I think this is really high probability. And also, we have context. We have that daily fair value gap. So this is great. This is like really high probability, I think. So we have the context target, then we have this target, and then finally the more long-term target. Okay. So overall, yeah, just a retracement back inside that weekly fair value gap to continue lower. That would be beautiful. Okay, so the metals, especially silver, really interesting for tomorrow. Now, moving on to crude oil. What do we have here? Just I'm gonna remove. Okay, so we had this weekly fair value gap and this monthly fair value gap. Now we've had a sting inside of both, and right now it seems like we are respecting it. You see this wick at the bottom, we are respecting that. We closed above it. Now the question is, can we continue higher? Okay, that's the big question here on crude oil. Um, so we did create that weekly bearish fair value gap. It's a gap here, but it's there. It's a fair value gap. Um, so the next target is definitely that weekly fair value gap. So I think we can continue higher at least until we reach that weekly fair value gap. So honestly, for the beginning of the week, I just see higher prices here, um, like this, until we reach inside the weekly fair value gap. Once we're there, either we completely move lower from it, which I don't think is going to happen. It could, but I don't think it's going to happen. Or we just disrespect it and start moving higher. So right now, for the short term, for Monday, Tuesday, and potentially Wednesday, I see just higher prices here on oil for sure. I think we're gonna go back all the way up to like $92 a barrel. So that's it for crude oil. Now, Bitcoin. Bitcoin, we had this weekly fair value gap overlapping with that fair value area. We are respecting it right now. Well, there's still 4 hours to go, but overall, the next target is this swing low. And yeah, I think we can keep delivering lower. Now, from the daily perspective, we had this daily fair value gap. Now, the first candle clearly disrespected it, but we still have this one right here. So I think that we can just sting into it and then move lower. Okay. I don't see any reason why Bitcoin would start going higher and reach like this high, for example. I don't see any reason for that. So yeah, still bearish here on Bitcoin for sure. Now the indices. So right here on the S&P, um, it's weaker than Nasdaq. You'll see. Well, here Nasdaq is pretty strong, but that's because Nasdaq has SpaceX, and SpaceX has been doing really good. So that's what's carrying Nasdaq higher. That's what's making Nasdaq stronger, basically. But the S&P here, I don't know. I'm a little bit 50-50 here on the indices because I see the case where we could just start going higher. Friday's candle is, I would say, bullish candle here with this wick at the bottom. Um, but we still haven't really rejected from that daily fair value gap. We're still inside of it. And it's been three candles now. The first candle was not a rejection. Second candle was not a rejection either. And now the third candle is arguably not a rejection also. So I don't know. I don't know. That looks bearish to me. Well, it's just because I have this like this bias in my head that I think the indices are gonna start going lower. I think we're in a bubble and it's gonna pop and everything. And so it's hard to really reach a conclusive bias here. But objectively speaking, if we just simply look at the candle science, at this last candle here on Friday, then I would say yes, the most logical thing for price to do is to continue higher towards this high. Okay, but for now it's kind of 50-50. I think if we wait for tomorrow's candle, then on Tuesday we can reassess everything and see if we have a clearer direction. But on Nasdaq here, Nasdaq is really strong. The next target is the all-time high. I think we can reach a new all-time high here on Nasdaq. But again, that's because Nasdaq has SpaceX, S&P doesn't. Because we did reject and push higher from that daily fair value gap, which we didn't on the S&P. So yeah, I think objectively speaking, we should see a new all-time high at the beginning of the week here on Nasdaq, depending on how SpaceX does. Everything here depends on SpaceX, honestly. So yeah, that's it for the indices. I'm sorry, I can't reach a clear bias, but if I had to force something, I would say long, especially on Nasdaq. S&P could be more of a consolidation. Now, the crosses, let's take a look because we do have a lot of Forex news. Well, we have a lot of news for many different currencies that could be interesting. Nope. Canadian dollar JPY, nope. CHF JPY, I do like it. We delivered lower from that weekly fair value gap, so we have context still. Still have to reach that low. Then on the daily's not great. We don't have daily fair value gap. We don't have 4 hour fair value gap. That's unfortunate here because the weekly does look good. Let's keep it on the interest list. We'll see how it develops. GBP JPY, that's just a massive consolidation here. I don't want to get involved. Euro JPY consolidation as well. Australian dollar JPY, same thing. And then New Zealand dollar JPY looks a little bit better. We can definitely head lower, but we don't have context. So JPY pairs are just not that great. CHF JPY is really like only if we create some kind of context here. But other than that, I wouldn't look at it. Right, CHF pairs, yeah, that's a consolidation. Well, actually, maybe we're getting out of that consolidation. If you look at the weekly here, we have consolidation candles for the past like 2 months, and then we have this one, which is last week's candle, which is not a consolidation, well, not as bad as the other ones. So I think we can head higher here towards this high, and then on the daily, we have context from this daily fair value gap. So yeah, I think potentially Australian dollar CHF could be interesting. And also, we have a bunch of Australian dollar news this week. So yeah, that's not too bad. Canadian dollar CHF. mm, yeah, no, that's well, we could head higher. I think that is the bias here. Could keep going higher, but right now, no, we don't have context. So no, that's not interesting. Euro CHF, yeah, that wants to head to go higher as well. But we're so close to the first target that it's not great. It's not really interesting, and we don't have context. So no. GBP same thing. Don't have context. And then New Zealand dollar CHF, that's just a consolidation. Yeah. Oof. Yeah, that's really ugly right here. Okay. So no, that's not interesting. Australian dollar, Canadian dollar going higher until we reach this high. Um, yeah, I mean, right here, we do have this fair value gap. I think we could retrace back into it. I wouldn't be surprised to see a retracement back here, even in that lower fair value gap, to then deliver higher. I think that's not too bad. Let's keep an eye on it. Euro Canadian dollar going lower, going higher, sorry. Um, Next target is here. Then on the daily, yeah, I think we can already start going higher, probably even from just this 4 hour fair value gap. Well, actually, this entire area, right? I think we can go higher from there, but it's not my number one pick. I have to be honest here. Let's keep an eye on it. GBP Canadian dollar, that does look good. Yeah, that does look good to continue higher. Right here, the immediate rebalance. We completely failed to create the bearish daily fair value gap, and we're going higher from this daily fair value gap, so that looks good. And we have the 4 hour fair value gaps right here. So yes, this GBP Canadian is probably one of my favorites so far. To continue higher until we reach this high. New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar, that's a consolidation. Yeah, that's not great. Okay, Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. Yeah, that's going higher for sure. Still have this target to reach, and then on the daily's not too great. That's that sucks. But I'll put it on the interest list. But I just don't think we're gonna have any opportunity here. Euro, New Zealand dollar going higher, yes. Um, the daily, yeah, that's it's not too great. We don't have context. No, I don't like this. GBP New Zealand dollar. Yeah, same thing here. Not great. Not great. Then Euro, Australian dollar. These pairs are never good. Like Euro Australian and GBP Australian, I don't know why they're never good. I don't think I've ever traded these two. Like, but yeah, overall, I think this is heading lower. We had a sting inside this weekly fair value gap. Now, last week it does seem like it was to continue lower. The fair value gap is so tiny, it's not great. And then GBP. Oh well, actually, GBP Australian dollar could, yeah, that could be better from this daily fair value gap to target this first target right here. This is not too bad actually. Let's keep an eye on it. All right, lads. Well, we have a couple crosses on the interest list here. We'll keep an eye on them throughout the week. And just to recap, so on the dollar, higher prices or a consolidation throughout the week. It depends, but I think that at the beginning of the week, we can, like Monday, Tuesday, we can head higher until we reach this. So if there is an opportunity on the dollar, I would take a look at GU or USD which are my favorites right now. Then on the metals, just short, just lower prices throughout the week. And for tomorrow, for the beginning of the week, I would focus on silver rather than gold. Then crude oil, again, beginning of the week, I see higher prices until we reach that weekly fair value gap. Then we'll have to reconsider, but higher prices for sure to start the week. Bitcoin, lower prices throughout the week. And the indices, 50-50 right now. 50-50. We'll see what tomorrow's candle looks like, and then we'll be able to take a better decision. But overall, yeah, that's it. I think we have some decent price action here, even though we don't have the greatest news events throughout the week. We do have some nice looking charts, like the dollar here does look nice. Silver does look really nice. Bitcoin. So yeah, we could have some decent opportunities throughout the week. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for listening, and I will see you in tomorrow's daily forecast. Thank you. Ciao.